All right, today here with Bob. He's going to be helping me out. He's the maintenance man at a school locally here. And we've got I think it's a Craftsman power washer, and it's been sitting around for about 2 years, maybe more. I think he said 8, and it's actually still got gas in it. The thing looks brand new, so my plan is to go ahead and take off the float bowl carburetor completely, blow it out, clean it out, and to remove the gas that's in there. So to do this, get started on it, you take that cover off the air cleaner, and there's 2 screws. The outer screws there are 7mm, I do believe. And the inside, the silver looking ones, there's 2 of them. The inside screws are 8mm, or vice versa. But it's 7 and 8mm. Why they make them 2 different sizes, I don't know. It was so windy out there today, I decided to just do a voiceover on this video. So now what we got to think about doing is, okay, we're getting ready to take out the gas from this thing, and it comes out pretty good. I just got done doing a winterization on a couple machines that the school owns there, and one of them was a big Gravely zero turn, and I mixed I did the oil change tune-up stuff, and then mixed a little stable in it, and then we ran it dry. We just ran it completely out of gas as we put it away in the garage, and it's not to be started again until the spring. And then the other one was an X-Mark walk behind. We put some stable in that, did the whole oil change tune-up stuff, air cleaner, fuel cleaner, all that. And with that one, we left stable in it and topped it all the way off and let it run for a while. We're going to keep it topped off. I told him to keep it topped off, and just he's planning on running it at least once a month, and that'll keep the juices flowing. It should be good. It's another way to winterize it. So there's those 2 basic ways of doing it, and that's what I'm explaining here in the video. But the audio sucks so bad. So I pumped out that fuel, and it's real cloudy, so that would have, and it smelled pretty bad. It needed to be gone, and so we're gonna get the fuel out of the carburetor next. And sometimes you can take off this carburetor here fairly easily without taking off the shroud cover there, which is held on by 3 bolts. And if you do go after taking off that shroud cover to make things easier, make sure to not over tighten those 3 bolts on top. I get to that later when I reinstall this, and I'll show you how to take it off. And those are like 7 or 8mm bolts as well. So the first thing we're doing here is taking off the fuel line. It does have one of those little clamps. You got to pinch and then slide out of the way, and then you can take and pop it off there with needle nose pliers or whatever. I do like to usually spray a little WD-40 on this fuel line before I take them off to make them easier to slide out so I don't damage anything. But this thing was practically brand new. This machine is just so clean. I figured it would come off easy, and it did. Now I'm pointing out the auto choke link that's on top of the carburetor, and then the governor link. The governor link is the horizontal one. Well, it's the one that goes to the left and right, and the one I'm taking off right now is the auto choke. And you got to be really careful because there's that plastic tip. There's that plastic piece of the linkage right there, and it tends to break pretty easily if you're not careful. And here's where I'm considering taking the top off to make it easier to lift that carburetor up further, but it came off. So anyways, I took the that choke link out first, and then was able to take the governor link off second. Just pay attention to where stuff comes off, or go back in a video and take a look at it, see where it connects, and then I reinstall it a little later. So you got those 2 7mm or 8mm, I think 8mm screws on the bottom. So all you need for this is like a 7mm or 8mm, and a couple screwdrivers here. This big one is where I pry it up, and I make a mess here. It just pops off. Got all over Bob, but he was unfazed. But it's the dangers of the cameraman here. I told him I had a YouTube channel, and I would normally be doing some kind of video, but I forgot my tripod, and it was cold, and I had like 5 machines to work on and sharpen blades, and I was going to be so busy. Okay, so then we're going to go ahead and take the jet out of this, and you take a little screwdriver there and wedge it right in between the white part and the black part and just twist it. Just give it a real quick twist, and that pops right out of there. That's the best way I've found to take these out. And then we'll be looking at these, all the orifices. We're going to blow them out with compressed air, and then also down into the carburetor, we're going to be blowing it out. And just want to, there's a few things to pay attention to as you're blowing this out. And all of these holes on the jet, every little hole, there's about 4 of them. So just pay attention to that one on the bottom there, little jet. And you got like 3 little holes on top. And then I'm getting down in here inside the carburetor. And I usually don't like to blow through the fuel inlet. If I do that, if you don't know whether you have a fiber rubber seat on there or not, I would not blow through the inlet because it might blow out, and then when it blows out, you'll probably lose it, and you might not even realize it's not in there anymore, the seat, and then the needle will not reseal. It will just be running rich. You're going to wonder what's going on, and it's going to be running terrible. And then eventually you will replace the carburetor, but you didn't need to. It's just that seat that you blew out of there. So here is going to completely disassemble this thing pretty much completely. It's to take the float itself out, and that's just popping that little pin, little hinge pin, and then you have the needle right there with that black tip on it. And just that's kind of barely dangling in there. So just keep all that stuff together. That's what I do, and I just put it to the side. And now I have the carburetor pretty much disassembled. Well, just the float bowl and the float out. On this particular carburetor, did not have a rubber seat, so I can blow either way confidently through the orifices there, the fuel inlet. I can blow down, I can blow in, it doesn't matter because I'm not worried about blowing out that seat. And here's also a Welsh plug. These are pressed into the carburetor body, and there's a little bitty opening right down in there that you want to blow into. Okay, and if you have a carburetor like this and you find that it's running rough, a lot of times that Welsh plug will just fall down into the bottom of the float bowl, and this actually has something to do with the airflow that's going in and out of the carburetor. If that's missing, it's going to disturb that airflow. It's not the way the pressure and stuff and the air works on top of the fuel inside of the float bowl. If that falls down and is just down the bottom of the float bowl, that function has been lost, and that may be the reason for your engine not running good if you have one of these types of carburetors on it. So I'm going to blow out that little orifice down in there. There's a little bitty passage right down in there on the side of the Welsh plug, and just blow it out real good. Blow down in there, and now we're putting the float back in there with the needle nice and gingerly, real easy. Get that needle down in there gently. Don't force anything, and once you get that pin in place, it just pops right back into place with your thumb there. And make sure that it's hanging nice upside down. Usually what I do is I'll blow into that inlet port where the fuel line goes in, and in this position when it's upside down, your breath should not be able to go through there. If you put your lips on that and blow in that position like that, air will not flow. And then if you turn the carburetor back upside down, or right side up rather, and blow, it should blow freely because the float will be down and the needle will be not obstructing the flow. All right, and then there's that little detent or depression, and it lines up with that white top part of the that main jet. So it only goes on one way, and then you pop it right back into place. And this one did. Sometimes they're a little rough getting back down, sealed onto the carburetor body. There's a big old red O-ring. Sometimes it gets hung up. This one went on pretty good, probably because it's cold outside and that rubber seal O-ring is contracted a little bit. And then you got your 2 little 8mm screws, screw back together. Now it's time to reinstall. Now I'm going to try this. I end up having to take the top off of it. And Oh, one other thing, you have this Teflon ring. You got to make sure that's in there, and back behind it is the black O-ring. Make sure that those are in position. If you don't, your engine will not be running good. You'll be running really lean because you're sucking a lot of air, so make sure that those are in position. All right, and I'm going to grab the governor link here first and just going to try to get this on there without breaking anything. So I'm just kind of doing this in reverse order. That's where the governor arm goes into, and then that little tang black piece on top, there's a tiny hole in there, which is where the auto choke link goes into. And this is just tight space. It's kind of hard to get a hold of things. I do end up taking the top off of this because I don't want to break it. If you break that, you're buying a new carburetor. So you got to be really careful if you're going to do it this way. And I just chose not to because, especially if it's cold outside like it was on this day, those plastic pieces are real brittle and they'll break pretty easy. So yeah, I try it here for a minute, but give up. And I did look down in the gas tank earlier, just as a side note, and there was a little bit of moisture still in there, and I shoved a rag down in it and just got it all cleaned out before we put fresh gas in there. So now I'm going for the taking the shroud cover off here, or whatever you want to call this. And we got the 7 or 8 millimeter, whichever one fits. It's 7 or 8. Take these off, and when you go to retighten these, you do not want to over tighten them. I've got this impact wrench, which is not a good tool to do this, but you just got to, I just had to be really careful not to over tighten them, because if you do, that little little hole right there, I'll point out, if that gets stripped, I've had one of these where if that anchor nut gets stripped, I've had all 3 of these anchor nuts get stripped, and it really sucks. I tack welded new nuts onto the bottom of it eventually. Otherwise, you have to get a whole new part, and it was just a pain. Just don't over tighten it, or it'll be not fun. All right, so we got that back on there. The links are in their proper holes, and I have the fuel line back on there. I'm going to take the needle nose and slide the clamp back into position. Everything's nice and sealed up. And we're just about done. Getting close to being done with this. We put gas in it, took it over and hooked it up to a fuel line, and it started first pull. Everybody's happy. Now I kind of monkey with this thing a little bit, trying to get it back into place. See where I got to line up that those screws into the holes with the anchor plates on there. Oh, and yeah, by the way, it's 10 times easier to get this air cleaner base back onto this crankcase breather hose if you have the engine cover off like it is. You can get it back on there if you're talented, if that cover's on there, but if you just take it off, it just makes this part so much easier. Then you have the darker head screws, which I do believe are the 7 millimeter, go on the outer side when this thing mounts with its 4 little screw bolts. And then the center ones are the 8 millimeter, and they have the shiny heads on them. Why they didn't make all of these the same? They could have all been the same size bolts, same size heads. Like, this is kind of the difference between, like, this is a Craftsman, isn't it? And like a Still. You could have one 25 Torx tip tool, and you can take the whole dang thing apart. All right, so I'm trying to put this cover back on without breaking anything, keeping in mind that I do not want to strip these bolt heads, and using an impact like I am doing in this is not a good idea. I do like using just a regular drill where I can adjust the chuck so that it doesn't over tighten, or it doesn't over torque too much. I can set the torque at a real low setting so that when it barely starts getting tight, it'll just the clutch will work, and it won't over tighten them. So in this particular sequence right here, I'm not having a lot of luck lining things up, and what it is the I guess the dogs on the recoil mechanism underneath where it grabs onto the flywheel aren't lining up with it properly, and I try to get it on there and it's just kind of jammed. So I just have to, I end up taking it back off, pulling the string a little bit, as you'll see here. The string won't even pull, so I realized that's not going to work. I'm going to take these back out, and then I pulled the string a little bit to line up the recoil better with the flywheel. Right about here I do it, yeah. And that's all it took. That's all it took to get it in place, is just that little tug on the rope. Got everything lined up inside. Got the bolts lined up, nice and easy. Do not over tighten them. I can't say that enough. It's such a pain in the ass if you strip these bolts or the anchor nuts. Okay, so got the gas cap get back on. I'm talking about not stripping those bolts. Cap nice and tight. And the air cleaner or the filter should come next. Putting that filter on there. Piece of cake, baby. 50 bucks. What do you think? This is another guy that worked for this school, Ken, and he just was like, hey, while you're doing the work on this other stuff, why don't you come? You can do my stuff. I charged him 50 bucks for this. What do you think? Is that fair? And I think it's fair. If I went out and did this for somebody, I'd probably be charging like almost $100, but since I was there already, like I said, started first pull. Thanks for watching, and subscribe.